Gridiron Warrior podcast is built for strength and football coaches who want to run the best possible programs for their athletes and their communities. Each episode delivers simple, practical coaching advice that transfers straight from the weight room to the field. No theory, no fluff, no fancy words, just real world strategies from coaches that are living it. So you can build stronger, faster, more durable athletes at any level. From the beginning, I've committed to only bringing on sponsors that I myself use and would confidently recommend to any coach. And that's why I'm fired up to partner with Train Heroic. Train Heroic is the platform I use to write programs, run my own training, and deliver workouts to athletes and whole teams. It's clean, it's coach friendly, and your athletes are actually going to go in the app and use it and enjoy it, compared to some of the other ones that are out there. If you're a strength coach looking for a better way to program and get that information to your athletes, or if you're a coach and you just want, plug and play, ready to go training programs that you don't have to build, Train Heroic is it, okay? And here's the kicker for anyone that is a supporter of the Gridiron Warrior. Start a free 90-day trial of Train Heroic using the link, trainheroic.com/Gridiron Warrior, and I'll drop 2 12-week training programs right into your account so that you don't have to start from scratch. You can start with 2 12-week programs built in there, tweak them, change them, customize them, and get a good feel of using the app. And those will be in there for you, so you can use those. So head to www.trainheroic.com/Gridiron Warrior, start your 90-day free trial, and reply to your welcome email saying that you want those 2 12-week training programs from me, and I'll make sure you get those. If you're a high school coach trying to bring structure and feedback to your jump and speed training, you need to check out the Plow Mat. The switch mat technology is precise, durable, and it's far more reliable than those laser-based systems. More importantly, the feedback is instant. Your jump height, your contact time, RSI, it's all shown on the remote, the controller, and it's logged in their app as well. You can use it every single day as a checkpoint. Are your athletes hitting plow numbers or thresholds? We use it in season to gauge readiness. You can check their ground reaction force and see if their springs are there as well. It's something that you'll bring out and use every single day in the weight room. If you follow Rich Burnett, the founder, you already know that the education piece is big too. He's a high school guy at heart, and so is the company. So, Plow Mat is there to provide everything that we talk about in Gridiron Warrior, actionable results, real service, great customer service, and they're trying to bring jump training to the next level. So happy to support them. Check out the Plow. Today on the podcast, we're bringing in Coach Jimmy Gajewski from Lakewood High School out in Ohio. And the reason I'm bringing him on is because he recently just completely overhauled his weight room. Brand new weight room. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Done by Perform Better. And I'm bringing him in because we need to talk about how do you get that done in terms of the finances, in terms of the vision, the planning, the hurdles, the obstacles. And he's been through it and came out the other side, and it looks phenomenal. So we're bringing him in today to talk about the challenges he faced and, more importantly, how he overcame those and is now in his beautiful new weight room. So it's going to be a great episode. Looking forward to it. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron Warrior podcast. Today, I have Coach Gajewski on the podcast from Lakewood High School. He's going to talk to us today about, not only the amazing weight room they just built. If you go on social media and see it, it's a freaking beauty. But also the position he's created for himself there at Lakewood. But for context and how I met you, Coach, how I found you, right, is I'm on social media one day and I look and, I see the pictures, I see the videos of the new weight room. And I'm like, immediately I go, that's a Perform Better weight room. Perform Better for us is 15 minutes down the road. It's a Rhode Island company. And, I've done a lot of work, and I would be remiss not to mention my good friend who recently just passed away, Rob Milani. And I texted Rob and I said, Rob, Lakewood High School, what's the story? And he goes, what do you know about Lakewood? I go, I just looked at it. I can tell you guys did this weight room. And he sends me the scopes. He sent me the schematics and design and everything. He's like, yeah, man, this is a fun project. Like, this thing came out great. And Rob was an awesome guy. And whatever you needed from him, he would go the extra mile and deliver it. And it shows in every single weight room he built. Like, there's a lot of care, there's a lot of love, and the customer service from him really shines through. So it's funny, like, that's the mutual connection. I told him about that. And I said, yeah, we're bringing Coach Jimmy on. We're going to bring him on the podcast. We're going to talk about how he got that done, because it's not easy as a high school strength coach to, if you need a new weight room or you're trying to do something there, it's a big project. It's a huge undertaking. And, so he was excited for that. And he was funny. Like, I told him, I said, hey, we'll probably give you a plug, probably give you a shout out on the podcast. And maybe he didn't want to hear any of that. And that's why he was like, this is my time to go. And, I love Rob, and I'm sure he's listening to this now. He's got plenty of time to listen to this podcast, so I hope he is. But Coach, start us off here. Talk to us, because you're a Lakewood guy through and through, right? So tell us your story. Tell us how you got there because you went to school there, but then, how did you get back to Lakewood? Let me hear the whole story.
Yeah. So, going back to my college days, I actually started as a econ and finance double major at John Carroll, and I was playing football there, trying to make it work at a small private school. Full-time student, full-time athlete to help pay the bills. I was a resident assistant, and then I was spinning pizzas at Guy's Pizza out on the east side, and just totally burnt, really hated my major. I wasn't successful academically or athletically. I was just doing too much all at once. But I really loved just training, and I wanted to be in a weight room setting in some capacity. I knew that was right. So I stepped away for a little bit of time. I started personal training actually at the Lakewood YMCA. That was really like my first real job in some sort of exercise science capacity. Transferred to Cleveland State. And when my time was done there, this was a couple athletic directors ago. I just walked into his office one day. I introduced myself. I'm like, hey, I've got this exercise science degree. I've got all these certifications. I want to be a strength coach. What do you guys got for me? And at the time, it was, I think, like a $6,000 or $7,000 a year stipend for like a part-time gig, and it just wasn't what I was looking for. And they weren't ready for a full-time strength coach. And to be honest, I wasn't ready to run a program at that stage in my career. So I went down the road to St. Edward High School. I interned there, worked my way up to an assistant strength and conditioning role. And then kind of broke away from that, worked with professional mixed martial artists and boxers and strikers. I got to work out of the UFC PI and see what some of those guys were doing, Kyle Laramie and Gavin Pratt, and take that practice back to Cleveland. But in between some flights from Vegas to Cleveland, I was helping volunteer with our boys basketball program. Coach Kamok was my freshman baseball coach, and he's now our head basketball coach. And he knew he was supposed to be doing something in the weight room during the off season. He just didn't know what. And I started programming for him, and I would poke my head in here, once or twice a month. And they enjoyed it so much, the coaching staff and the kids, that they wanted to pay me. Once other teams figured out about it, I was covering boys baseball and then girls track and field. And enough programs were interested that the administration and the athletic director wanted to create a position. And the quick fix for that, there's a institution out here called T3, where they kind of contract coaches out to local area schools, and then they have their sports performance facility out in Avon. And he had T3 covering all the other sports initially, and I was just doing baseball and basketball. Because they had their guy and were really sure that I wanted to be the one overseeing their programs. So when the contract negotiations came up again, I essentially gave my pitch to all the coaches. I said, hey, here's what I was able to accomplish. Here's how, I want this program to kind of go. And at the end of the day, they decided to take a chance on me, the little guy. That T3 facility was created in 2009, I think. So I was a junior in high school versus a guy that got his LLC, a couple months prior. So starting a business and trying to compete with some of these big fish in Greater Cleveland was definitely challenging for me. Um, because I just knew S&C. I didn't know anything about running a business at the time. But yeah, that's how it all sort of came to be for me.
I think your story is similar to a lot of private sector coaches, right? You get into it, and private sector is great. There's a lot of, the one-on-one stuff is awesome. Some of the small group setting stuff is awesome, but you are competing with schools, right? Kids have to go to class. Kids have to then go to their after school thing, and then you're still trying to get them to come to you. And if you have an opportunity to get into the school, that's a win. Now, if you can get into the school and you work with all the teams, that's the biggest win right there. And I think that's something really, really cool and really special. What are some things you said or had to convince the coaches on to, prove that you should work with all the teams instead of just maybe the two teams that you had been working with prior? Like there is value in one person, one voice, one mission, one clarity, and it makes it even more obvious when you talk about building a new weight room and managing that room and things like that. But what did you do to get the other sports on board and those other coaches on board and say, hey, instead of contracting the multiple people, let's get one voice, let's get one coach in there, and let's get a unified Lakewood school?
Yeah, for me, I think, trying to create it as objective based information as possible and kind of show them, here's where we started. Here's the key performance indicators I was tracking early on. Here's where we finished after, the 9-month or the 12-month period that I was contracted to work with those teams. And honestly, success, like our boys basketball program and our boys baseball program had some really, really good years, and not that I'm taking credit for those things. But I think nothing helps recruitment more or getting people on board more than having a little bit of success. But there were some things that I was able to look at and say, like, I've enhanced this or I've reduced the risk of this, showing them that, we're working with our sports medicine staff and we're sitting in and having conversations, and I'm talking to our DPTs through the Cleveland Clinic or our athletic trainers, trying to show them the enhancements I'm doing on game day prep or, some nutritional guidance for these kids that maybe other coaches that were rotating through with that or other organization were providing for the athletes at the time. And just being there, like I really tried to show up and be a part of practices and game days and stuff just outside of these four walls in the weight room, to really like ingrain myself in their program and in their culture, and that I wasn't operating in a silo separate to everything else that they had going on.
I think for the young coaches out there, the two big things are you got to put in the effort, you got to put in the time, especially when you're young, and it gets a little bit harder when you got a family, you got a couple kids at home, you're trying to get home to them. So while you still can push, right? Be there, be present, be active, make yourself not just seen, but like felt. You're there, and our athletic director comes in 3 days a week and trains first thing in the morning, and that really helped me early on continue to build a relationship, especially moving up into the head strength coach role. First time being a head strength coach, I was able to have conversations with him at least 3 times a week when normally I didn't have that. And then I think the other piece to it too is when I went to get a promotion for an associate AD role, not just the time and the effort. You can't just go in and say, hey, I'm here a lot, I work a lot, I should get paid more. Yeah, we all work a lot. You need to bring some numbers to back it up. So I said, hey, in the past 3 years, here's our injury rate, here's our performance metrics, here's our attendance rates, here's our X, Y, and Z. So it's more than just, yes, you got to work hard, yes, you got to put in more hours, but you also need to be able to prove that all that work you're doing is for a good reason. And it sounds like you did both those things. Let's talk about the weight room now, though, because it wasn't like that when you first got there. Tell us about what it looked like before, and more importantly, talk about, like, you're in there, you're in this room, and I've been there, and you have a vision for it. You're like, we could do so much more, and you've got to convince everybody to get on board. So, what did it look like before? What was the situation before the rebuild?
Yeah, so I actually if you'll allow me, I have a share screen option that I think would help
Yeah.
create a little bit better of a picture of kind of what we were dealing with here. You see my screen
Boom.
okay?
Yeah.
All right. So kind of just giving you the general layout of what I was seeing. Um, this is the weight room. Along this north wall here was a bunch of cardio equipment, recumbent bikes, treadmills, that were all sort of defunct. There was a giant jungle gym system that I think a previous educator had bought for their adaptive PE program. A line like sort of like L bend here of racks, and then there's a big old leg press machine over here that's hasn't worked in a couple of years, a bunch of cable pull down machines that haven't worked in quite some time, and then along this south wall here is where we had a couple busted mirrors and then some dumbbells. But to try to uh you know get people interested in my vision and what I was trying to do, I knew we had to get some of that old equipment out, and we had to take care of and really like kind of cherish the stuff that we did. So, us being a public school, we can't just give things away or huck things into the dumpster. Like there's a process that goes along with that. The first bit of that process is it has to get put up for like a public auction. There's some third party reseller that we got to go through. The things that didn't sell, we were able to scrap or we were able to donate to individuals. And then what wasn't salvageable, that's where we were to a point where we could throw things away. So I kind of did it in batches where, you know, the things that are just getting absolutely no utility in this space just had to sort of get cleared out. And once I had enough floor space that I could reorganize some things, I shut this weight room down in December, and so the kids could take their finals and just have one less stressor or one less thing that they had to attend on their plate that week. And I reorganized, our racks and our benches and our dumbbells in a fashion that's actually kind of where it is right now. So I could show the administration like, hey, this is sort of, a design that I'm working towards. We just don't have all the pieces, parts in place right now. But again, just taking care of what we had, and making sure that the kids knew, the proper procedures to kind of go through and navigate a safe training session.
I think just to jump in, I think having pride in what you currently have is a big piece of it too. You can't you're not in the NFL, you're not at a Power 4 school, even at our level. I can't come in and say I don't want any of this stuff. I don't like any of this. I'm calling Perform Better tomorrow and I'm getting it all replaced. It's not that easy. You have to still appreciate the good things that you have and acknowledge that, hey, we are working towards a future, and I've talked about it before on, either my newsletter or things like that. For 4 or 5 years now, I've been fighting for certain things like new TVs, new, branding, a giant ram head logo, something that we can have some pride in this room. And, I was with Rob Milani, we were working on getting a new floor and getting new racks and it's going to happen. I always say it's not an if, it's a when, but that doesn't mean we don't love the space we have right now. We just, I think if you're a leader and you're a good boss, I mean, what you do is you continue to push and continue to try and make the situation better. And I think rearranging the room is the first step. And it sounds like, obviously a flow to your training is a big piece of the puzzle. I think the other piece is just overall space, is having some room to work. Would you say that that's probably one of the things you were trying to prioritize?
Yeah. I think, again, getting that old equipment out of here that was really just taking up a huge footprint, and not really servicing anybody. The room itself is 4,500 square feet, which is, in the grand scheme of things for a high school setting, it's a huge weight room.
Our room here is a little over 5,000. So it's pretty solid. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been around to some local area schools in Northeast Ohio, and a lot of schools in our conference. You know, when we go travel to these schools and we're going into the locker room at halftime, that's like my first priority is going and checking and seeing out what they got and comparing it to the rest of our schools in our conference. Like we have a huge room. Um, but yeah, I super fortunate that our administration had the foresight to be able to build out the space. They just didn't have anybody in here to not only take care of the equipment or really to guide them on what equipment should be in here in the first place. Um, and the stuff we had, like they were the stray dog racks that I squatted on in 2006 to 2010. You know, and before that, there were dumbbells that were purchased by an individual donor from like 1997. You know, so I used to walk around in the middle of a training session and almost like intra-set, it felt like I had a Swiss Army knife with like hex keys, and I would walk around and tighten the dumbbells as kids were getting ready to do their press or their goblet squats or whatever exercise we had programmed for the day. Um, but yeah, trying to utilize the square footage to the best of our abilities. I knew I had to get the defunct stuff out. I need to show that we can make this work with the rest of the equipment we had. And again, try to find a way to make a training session better, not just for the kids, but for me as a coach. You know, if I've got racks all over the weight room, could probably only get eyes on one or two kids squatting at a time. But if we line them all up, I could stand down and just, you know, like any other strength coach, just stand down, stare down the line, and I could bark out some general commands and I can just make sure people got spotters or they're doing the things in the fashion that I want them to.
So let's shift gears now. Let's talk about probably the biggest hurdle that you have to get over, and especially being at a public school, is the funding for it, right? It's not like a private school where you can just go out and find a donor who's going to give you $500,000 and say, "Yeah, put my name on it when you're done." Like, here we go. Even at the college level, for us, I mean, we're still a public institution. There's a lot of hurdles financially we have to go over. So that's the biggest piece. So how did you get administration on board, and then what did it look like? Was it something that they had to go out and get state approval for? Was it something we obviously have the booster fund, it sounded like, that helped raise that money? Talk to us about the financial side of things.
Yeah. So, you know, our athletic boosters, they do a phenomenal job and they handled a ton of the fundraising. Um, but kind of how I fit into the whole fundraising side. Um, you know, I think about something our head baseball coach, Coach Graves, said he went to a conference in Washington, DC. It was like the American Baseball Coaches Association. And the keynote speaker was Tony Vitello, who's the head coach at Tennessee. And something he took away from that conference that I then took away from Coach Graves was he was talking about recruiting the fans. And Coach Graves, you know, he would do his alumni nights and his youth league nights, honoring previous athletes that came through this program. And there was a huge buzz around our baseball program, and we had a wildly successful year. They made it to the Elite Eight. It was the most you know, historic season we've ever had. And I'm like, man, like he's right. Like you got to get people excited about this program. I got to get the future excited about it. So I just went and volunteered at as many different things as I was going to our middle school football camps, running warm-ups or running a station at some of our youth baseball camps, talking to as many parents as I could, because I'm not selling tickets or I'm not selling hot dogs here. Like I got to find a way to bring some cash flow in. And what better way than the people that are going to be utilizing it or the you know, the children of the individuals that are going to be using it to go to them and say like, hey, by the way, I know I just ran this warm up. Have you heard about our capital camp? And sort of just grassroots for my side of things. Now we have, again, I'm very fortunate to have a highly motivated athletic director, a very, very highly motivated athletic boosters, and our superintendent, Maggie Nidzwicki they were all on board, you know, so it's hard for me to kind of put myself in the shoes of some of these people that are struggling to have conversations with their administration because everybody made it super easy for me. Um, but yeah, writing grants, through the Healthy Lakewood Foundation, we were able to get some money through that. Our night at the races in the spring, all the money that went from that was put back directly into our capital campaign. Um, but for me, I think it's just like explaining the necessity behind a safe weight room and a safe sports performance facility, and showing them where their money's actually going. So,
Let's
you know,
let's get into that piece in particular because that's something that I always have conversations with my athletic director. I'm never going to go up there and give them. I'm not going to open the Toys R Us magazine and circle, "Hey, I want this, I want this, I want this for Christmas. Go get me these things for Christmas." I'm going to go up there and say, "Hey, we need this because of this reason, this reason, this reason. We really need this because of health, safety, performance, whatever the metrics are that I choose to display." But you can't just go up there and ask for things. You got to go up there and explain the why, because then your athletic director is the person that's going to go out and go talk to the big fish and say, "Hey, we really need to get this done in the weight room. We got to revamp this and this." Well, why do we need to do that? Don't we already have a room? Isn't it already 5,000 square feet? That sounds pretty good to me. And then they explain, well, yes, but health, safety, blah, blah, blah. So what ammunition did you provide your athletic director? You started talking about it, but the ammunition you provided in order to really sell your story.
yeah. So, I mean, I tried to illuminate all the safety considerations without going overboard and having them shut me down. Like
That is a big piece. If you mention too many safety things, then you're like, well, we shouldn't even be in there right now. And
right.
then you're not going to get a weight room at all. So
Yeah. So I mean, like I would be honest and upfront about things where I would tell them, like, hey, I wanted to do X, Y, and Z today, but I had to shut it down because, this cable snapped, or I didn't feel confident in them using this dumbbell, or whatever the reason it might have been. Um, and honestly, just proving usage. Like I created a weekly flow chart, and we have 1,400 student athletes here at Lakewood High School. About half of that student population participates in athletics in some way, shape, or form. Our physical education instructor brings 2 classes a day in here. We have a 2-year exercise science program that runs labs out of here sometimes. Adaptive PE. We run a long-term athletic development camp that comes through here. So showing them that, hey, we're getting anywhere from 700 to 900 unique visits a week, and multiple times throughout that week. So showing them like, hey, there's some serious wear and tear on this equipment, and also showing them like flaws in my own programming and where we're struggling. Because I always go back to like my purpose in this whole scope of this, and kind of how I fit into the performance pie, how I always look at it, is I'm just looking to prepare them for demands of practice, and practice kind of prepares them for demands of games. And I didn't have a safe, sustainable, or repeatable way to sprint or to run or to bounce year round. Like there's always something going on in the gymnasium, whether it's practice or a competition or a game. We share space with our recreation department. It gets pretty chilly here in Cleveland, Ohio for many months out of the year. So I always felt like I was in the way when I was trying to have a max velo session, or if I was trying to run some change of direction drill. But showing them like, hey, if I had some turf in here, if I could get rid of some of this equipment, like I could get away with doing some of these more, sport specific movements that I just don't have an ability to do right now.
I think for the young coaches out there that are looking for ideas, trying to steal stuff, foot traffic is one of those things that you need to start measuring. And I stole this from my mentor at Merrimack, Mike Kamal. We would track our schedule, right? Every team that comes in, every session, and we would write down the attendance of how many. And we had it fluctuates day to day. Kids are sick, whatever. But for the most part, we knew every week, we had football 5 times a week. That's 500, 100 times 500 times they come in. And if you think about, our campus rec gym down the hall, it's the same building, but it's all the way down the opposite end. Kids have to swipe in every time they go to the gym. So they have a count. They know how many people use the campus rec gym. And I'm telling you, our gym gets a lot more action than their gym does. And they have plans and procedures in place to update, their equipment. And a lot of the machines are on lease, and they'll swap them out and get new machines in there. But this is the one room, and I also say this is the one room that every student athlete, when they're in college, they're going to use this room, and they're going to use this room a lot. Hopefully, if we're doing our job, they never have to go to the athletic training room. Hopefully, if we're doing our job, they never have to go to academic center, maybe for advising and get their classes scheduled, maybe a semester of study hall, but they're not in there every day. They're in our weight room every single day, and the foot traffic is enormous. So
Yeah,
campus rec doesn't change their bars out every couple of years, but they're also not beating their barbells up like we are on a weekly basis. So
yeah,
that's
and trying to justify, like you said, the foot traffic. I think outside of maybe our cafeteria, no other place in this building gets more foot traffic than our weight room.
right. The basketball court doesn't get as much traction because not everyone goes on it. Football field, no, because not everyone goes on the football field. But everybody has to go through the weight room if you're running a successful program. So it's one of those things. Get that number. Like, find out how many people come in your room every week, because not only is it a thing to promote new equipment and things like that, it's a recruiting piece too. I tell our athletic, we have 500 student athletes come in here. Never mind the amount of recruits. We tracked the amount of official and unofficial visits that came through our doors. How many recruits I've talked to. They come in and see this room too.
I that was a phrase I was using for a little while. As much as I want to develop and retain our athletes, and we have goals that we want to achieve now, like, this is about retaining the middle schoolers that are within Lakewood City School District, because for the last 20 years, our school district has been shrinking about 1,000 kids per 10 years, right? So, 20 years ago, there were about 4,000 kids attending Lakewood High School. Fast forward to now, there's about 1,400, so trying to ensure that they're not going to some of these private Catholic institutions. Like, it's a little bit of an arms race, and we want to stay competitive in that. And we are, like, we're holding our own with some of these huge programs. We actually had a kid transfer in last year from one of these private Catholic institutions. He was a huge part of our success story in the baseball program. So we're going toe to toe with some of these programs out there. And, to justify what I remember specifically sitting in a boosters meeting, and, one of the individuals there was sort of scratching their head, like, well, why is this rack, $3,000-$4,000 when they had, I don't know, I can't remember the equipment company, but it was like $700. And I'm like, the usage, like you were saying, I'm like, that's great for like a home gym setup. It's going to get squat on maybe once every 10 to 7 days. But to be able to, again, provide objective data proves what's going on in here for those individuals.
Let's talk about some of the bells and whistles and some things you're really fired up about the weight room now that you've got it rebuilt. And how long you've only been open a couple weeks, right? Or was this the first full week back training for you?
Yeah. So I mean,
some things you're juiced up about that you have on the racks now.
Yeah. So let me start with, what I wanted to have and what we ended up having were two totally different things. And
yep, that happens a lot. So let's hear about it.
Well, it's, I talk about lucky, right? So our president of our athletic boosters, his sister just happens to be Holly France, who oversees, Olympic sports for the University of Maryland. So I got to pick her brain, and they had just gone through their own rebuild at University of Maryland. They had that brand new football facility built, and then Olympic sports took over the facility that football was in. So she was able to kind of help me navigate exactly what I should prioritize and kind of the flow of what a typical session would look like. And I kind of had an idea, like I think a lot of people use the Mike Boyle setup where there's the run of turf and you're talking about an assembly line. And the way I had it previously in the old setup was we run an hour and a half before school for our off-season programs. And then we run, an hour to an hour and 15 after school for in-season or preseason, where they're having some sort of practice or competition schedule that we gotta take into consideration. So it was a hard stop and hard start, getting the team out and then getting another team in. But with the layout and the flow of having this huge strip of turf, let me actually probably share this again for you. But having a little bit of a separate layout here, so I'll scroll all the way to the top. Can you see this okay?
Yep, looks good.
So our athletes would enter through here, right? And we do our movement prep, any sort of activation we want to get done, our sprint work, and then they'd kind of flow in here, and then they'd get through their strength training session. Now, the way it was set up prior with that hard stop, hard start, there wasn't any ability to have an overlap. But now instead of 3:15 to 4:15 and then 4:15 to 5:15, team one, team two, now I'm starting team two at 4 o'clock. And that 15-minute overlap allows me to get an extra hour every day, five hours additionally every week, Monday through Friday, which allows me to just sneak in. It's no extra time to me, but it allows me to sneak in an extra hour every day to get some more kids trained up here. So restructuring the space, and also like kind of setting myself up for success from a coaching standpoint. Like I gotta stand like right here. When there's that chaotic point where maybe I've got like 70, 80 kids and I'm running a warm up and I'm also finishing up that last team. But team one flows out, team two flows back in, back to the weight room side, and then that wheel just keeps on turning, for the next 4 hours after school until about 7:15, 7:30 at night.
I tell every coach, and we can jump out of this screen now, but I tell every coach, if you have space, that's the number one thing you need to protect. Like, don't lose that. We have 30 yards of turf. It's 10 yards wide. It takes up half the gym, but I will not giving that up. It's
Yeah.
just one of those things that from a warm up standpoint, there are times where we have three small teams in here and it's not a big deal. We'll have the tennis team in the back. We'll have men's basketball, like a group of them in the middle. We'll have the golf team in the front and everyone's got room. Now we have 14 racks instead of 10, so we can get a little bit more done. But, it's one of those things I wouldn't change it for the world. And you've got a great setup there. And the Mike Boyle flow is there for a reason, because I do think it's a great way to train athletes. You warm up on the turf, you get moving around, you do your athletic stuff, your jumps, your sprints, your med ball throws, and then you get into the weight training for the day, and then you can finish if you got a dumbbell rack or you have some other stuff, or you're doing one thing on the rack, one thing on the dumbbells, and then one thing on the floor. It's one of those things that it just works out better that way. And especially in your case, when you're trying to rip multiple groups through at the same time, that's a big win. Is there any small things that you're like, whether it's like gym or arms or something unique that you didn't have before that you're really excited that you have now? What is it?
Yeah. I wanted to do, the athletic arms. But we put in a bid that wasn't able to be honored because of some fluctuations with tariffs, right? So just some things that we couldn't have been able to foresee. But honestly, the most exciting piece in here for me is our hammer strength reverse hyper GHDs. I think, there's like a little decal on there that shows you 2 exercises you can do on it. But just off the top of my head, there's probably like 40 or 50 different things that I could do if you're attaching different TRX straps to it or different bands. But the space, like, I think for me, the most important thing in our programming is sprint work, and being able to set up the timing gates or pit these athletes against each other, just to chase or race and get the energy flowing before a session. Like, that was something that was really, really difficult for me to be able to recreate. I understand, and these athletes are mature enough to understand how important the S&C side is to their athletic development, but they don't love it as much as I do. So finding ways to gamify things in here and stealing some of the things that you put out, and trying to make things fun. Like, you can't do that if every square inch of this place is jam packed with it, you know? So I think for me, just having space and room to run and explore a little bit of this stuff, is the thing that I'm personally most excited about.
I think one thing that sometimes gets an afterthought or gets lost on is the music sound system, and then maybe some TVs or other technology if you ended up getting any iPads for the racks or things like that. You got a big room and you need some big speakers to fill that space. What is the music situation right now? How are we doing there?
Well, it's a lot of '90s rap and hip hop that the kids hate, but
Clean only, clean only.
oh yeah, absolutely. No, I'm not losing my job over that. But no, we got a nice speaker system here. I tell the kids I'm the director of sports performance. There is no DJ on my title or at my email signature. Um, but no, the speakers are a big part of the atmosphere here. I think just creating an environment where the kids want to be um was super important for me. And that was also like talking about kind of coming back to taking care of equipment. Um, there were a lot of different people that kind of had my position just informally in here. So there were donations from maybe somebody's home gym, or somebody had maybe zipped together some plyo boxes out of some scrap wood from Home Depot. And it just never felt like ours. It was a bunch of your stuff that just got brought in here. So talking about the branding and why we got our colorways on everything and why we got our Block L logo on things, like it's ours, and I want you to take care of it. I want you to have a little bit of pride in the things that we have here. Um, and if you walk into any college, like it's gonna look maybe not on their scope, but it's gonna look like this. Like everything's gonna have a place. It's gonna have a home. We're gonna be super detail oriented. All these dumbbells behind me, the Block L is gonna be upright. It's gonna be clean and organized. And I think the kids have really taken and ran with that. And now they're holding each other accountable instead of me being the schlep that has to clean up everything at the end of a session.
It's the details that make the difference. When you have those little things, you take a little more pride in it. You want to keep it a little bit more clean, a little bit more organized. And the music and that stuff is, I'm always thinking about that too. We have a giant, I don't know who got this thing, or when we built the weight room 15 years ago, but it looks like outer space planet, like it's a ship. It's huge. It's in the middle of the room. It's got 4 speakers that blast off of it. But we recently we got some of our TVs replaced because they've been sitting dead for a couple of years now. And I said, like, we really need these up. And why do we need them? You print out sheets, you do all that. And it's more than that. It's the branding. It's what can you put up on the screens? Can you provide education? And as soon as we got those back up, our AD was like, "Oh, I see it now. I see what you were talking about. Why it's important to have those TVs go." And I said, the next step is when this speaker finally dies and we put new ones in, we're going with surround sound around the room so we can kind of control it a little bit better. We can have music playing just in one half of the room versus the other half of the room. With a space like as big as yours, that's a nice feature if you can do it, is control the music and things like that. So it's
Yeah,
nice to get
no,
all the equipment, but thinking about the other things and the little details do matter.
yeah, no, I think it's a little easier to get under a bar when, Metallica's blasting in your ear.
Yeah. So I think this is a big question for you. And when you get these things, and I've been there, I've fought for years to get, whether it was the TVs or the giant Ram head logo, and it finally comes through and you feel really good about it. You're like, yeah, man, we did it. We got the weight room built. But you can't take your foot off the gas, right? It's always the next thing, the next project. Because if you get comfortable, you get satisfied, no one's ever going to continue to work with you, and they're just going to be like, oh, you got it. You got everything you wanted. You're good now. And it's like, hey, I love this. I appreciate this. But we also, here's the next step in the vision. Here's the next step in the journey. So you've got the weight room. You've got step 1 done. What's the next things that you want to build out in that, in Lakewood weight room?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna plug Perform Better here a little bit, and you know, my sales rep Lon Record, he did such a good job of not making me feel like a little guy. He would be stepping out on phone calls, talking to the Patriots head strength and conditioning coach, and talking to some guys out in Utah that are doing their hockey club out there. But he always made time for me, and what he really sold me on here was the signature series racks and kind of the modular nature of them and what I should prioritize. So there were things that I knew I needed to have, like, barbells and plates and benches. But then he's like, hey, you could, get your safety squat bars in here, and then we can get you some band pegs, and then you can do your hat fields. And we can eventually work into some football bars. And this attachment here is for like a chest supported row. And he's showing me all these unique things that I can slowly start to, fundraise for, and that we can kind of build out and build up this new space. But yeah, I think for me, looking towards getting some tech in here. I've got, a couple Brower timing gates. I've got, one output, a unit that I can stick to a bar. But showing athletes that and giving them that feedback real time can't be understated. I think for me, I put a ton of value in velocity based training. We're just not rich enough right now to be able to afford a couple of those units or to afford a subscription fee. So finding ways to continue to raise funds. I'm actually, as soon as I hop off the call with you here, I'm going and volunteering some hours to sell hot dogs at the concession stand. I got a bunch of athletes with me. Every hour that they put into volunteering with the concessions, that's $10 that goes back into the rep center and back into our program. And that's a lot of the ways that the kids raise funds for their teams and how the boosters is able to continue to do what they do. But I did leave. I didn't spend all of my money, or I should say our money that we raised, because I wanted to figure out like best practices, like what was maybe one thing that I had a little bit of oversight on, or, go back and say, man, I really wish I had some of those instead. And trying to figure out like, what is the least amount of derivatives I got to have to be able to get through a team. Like for me, it's either like 5s or 10s. Like I got to have, 5 GHDs, or I got to have 5 plyo boxes to be able to get through everybody in a session, or 10 racks to be able to get through my football program. So figuring out how I could afford, a multiple of 5 or a multiple of 10 or something, and just kind of going from there.
It's funny, we do the same thing, but our multiple is 7, right? Because we
Yeah.
have 14 racks, so at minimum, let's do 7 so we can do half the room. But I always start with 1, right? So I'm always like, should we get these landmine jammer presses? Let me get 1. Let me play around with it a little bit.
See how that goes.
See the value. Is this going to be worth it? If yes, I'm going to get 7. If I love it, I'm going to get 14.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and or even like I got 5 landmines on one side and I got 5 dip attachments on the other. If I find like my wrestlers and my gymnasts, they just loved the dips. I'm like, okay, like I don't want to take that away from them. If that's going to get you excited to be here, like I'll throw you that bone. And if more teams or I see more utility out of those things, I'll start to continue to add on to that modular rack that PB has for us.
Yeah, Coach, this was great. If other coaches are out there and they're trying to figure out the fundraising piece, and that's something that they want to do, but they don't have any experience in it, and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you could hop on my Instagram. I don't know if we got a way to link that. Shoot me a
I'll put
DM.
all that in the show notes. I can do that easy.
Email is great too. I'll put the email in there as well. But yeah, I would say social media or email is the best way to get a hold of me. And I guess if I had any words of advice, like this all happened in the grand scheme of things very fast for me. Like I know there are a lot of high school coaches in this area that have been working on their capital campaign or their project for 3, 5, 7 years, and it still hasn't sort of come to fruition. Be patient, try to show how it's going to create value. And again, try to recruit fans or try to get people excited about it. Like I can't understate that enough. Getting people in the weight room and just showing your alumni association or whoever it is pulling the strings, like why this thing's important.
I always say, keep doing good things, because good things are going to come to you eventually, right? And it is tough. It can be challenging at times. It can be disheartening at times, but don't let that detract from what you're trying to do, because you're trying to do something really good. Coach, thanks again for jumping on. This was great. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you on the next Gridiron Warrior podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, and you want to keep getting better, I encourage you to check out my new community, the Gridiron Warrior Insiders. Got it right here on the phone. The app is clutch. There's so many things in there that I think you'll find valuable. We have the weekly film study where you can go live with me, ask any questions you want. There's no Q&A, no big deal. I always have a topic that we're going to hit on every single week. And we record those too if you can't make it. With the Wildcat webinar, that's where I call somebody else in to run the offense. And they come in and they bring a presentation about something that they're an expert in and give us some fresh insight, new information. I have unreleased podcasts. There's about 10 or 15 that haven't gone live yet. You can listen to them early before anyone else. We have the equipment room, so discounts, whether it's Train Heroic, Plyomat, OVR, or even my own courses. You have discounts in the equipment room. Okay, the free safety, anything that I want to throw in there, bonus programs, programs for yourself as a coach, you name it, it's in there. And we have over 50 coaches right now that are helping each other. So we post questions and coaches will work together and provide insight and share information because that's what it's all about is coaches getting better. So if you want to check that out, the links are in my bio, the links at the end of this podcast. Check it out there. Gridiron Warrior Insiders.